Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome back. This is still Sham Kagod here. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, can you please give me a thumbs up? Either type Y, type yes, or give me a thumbs up. Either one of them will be acceptable. Okay, done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So far, what we have discussed, the concept of budgeting. In budgeting, how the budget is prepared, how the budget is passed, and what are the important deficits in the budget. And before the lunch, before the tea break, not the lunch break, tea break, we have discussed the concept of FRBM. What is the importance of FRBM? Right? Why did we introduce it? Right? And what are the provisions under FRBM? Please make a note of that. UPSC has been asking questions on those areas. Now, before that, understand the next point carefully here. Don't you think the FRBM Act, which was introduced back in the year 2003, it is outdated. Outdated in the sense there is a need to revamp or restructure the FRBM. Right? All of you will agree with me? Right? I hope you understand. I'll repeat it. FRBM was introduced back in the year 2003. You are in the year 2022 now, or 2023 for that matter. Right? Don't you think the FRBM Act needs revision? FRBM Act needs certain revamping. And that is the precise reason Government of India, right, last decade, not now, 2016, 2017, had set up a committee, NK Singh Committee. Right? Government of India set up a committee, NK Singh Committee. And based on the recommendations of NK Singh Committee, we have made changes to FRBM now. Now, what are the important changes that was recommended? First one, NK Singh Committee stated that rather than simply following the fiscal deficit and revenue deficit, we should also target and reduce the debt of the government. Slightly technical, we'll understand the basics first, follow it carefully. Do not be confused. Generally, what do we target? We target fiscal deficit, we want to reduce it. We target revenue deficit, we want to reduce it. What this committee stated was done, right? Target the reduction in the FD and RD, but apart from that, we should also reduce debt of the government. Now, some of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by debt of the government? Let's start the discussion here. Follow this very carefully, slightly technical. Once you understand, becomes very, very easy. Debt means how much of the money the government has to repay. How much of the money the government has to repay from Consolidated Fund of India. Simple. The borrowing that the Government of India has, which it has to repay from Consolidated Fund of India. I'll use a technical term here. The amount of debt which is charged on public debt of the government, that is called Consolidated Fund of India. I'll repeat it. The amount of repayment that is charged, or the debt that is charged on Consolidated Fund of India, that is called as public debt. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, what is this public debt? How it is different from fiscal deficit? Let me explain it. Follow this carefully. We are in the financial year 23 right now. Anybody has an issue with this, please do let me know. We are in the financial year 23. Till we complete March, we will be in financial 23. So this year, we have borrowed money, which we will have to repay. All of you agree? I'll take a very simple number. Imagine our borrowing this year is simply 100 rupees. Now, can I call this as fiscal deficit of financial year 23? Any difficulty? The borrowing that Government of India has done this year, I'll call this as fiscal deficit for the year 23. Now, don't you think in the same way, government would have also borrowed last year, the previous financial year? And let's say Government of India has borrowed in the previous financial year 200 rupees. I will call this as fiscal deficit for financial year 22. Any problem here? Any problem? Fiscal deficit simply means what? In every financial year, expenses are there, receipts are there, there is a gap, there is a shortfall, government will borrow in that year. So last year, government borrowed 200. This year, government has borrowed 100. This 100 is the fiscal deficit of this year, and 200 is the fiscal deficit of last year. Now, simple question to you, how much is the total debt of the government here? How much is the total debt of the government? The total debt of the government is 100 plus 200, 300 rupees. Is the logic okay here? The total amount of money that the government of India has to repay from consolidated fund of India is 300 rupees. So is the difference okay with all of you? What is the fiscal deficit? Every year how much you borrow, that is called as fiscal deficit. But what generally happens is, you borrow from last year, you still have not repaid it. You have borrowed this year, you are still yet to repay it. You have borrowed 5 years ago, you are still yet to repay it. Get the sum total of all this repayment that you owe to the market. That is called as the debt of the government. Now within the debt also there are two terminologies, please do not be confused. Whenever you come across the term public debt, whenever you come across the term public debt, it represents the amount of a debt that will be charged on consolidated fund of India of the central government. Central government owes money. How much is right the amount of money that the government of India owes, which will be taken from consolidated fund of India, that will be referred to as public debt. But apart from the public debt, you will also come across the term general debt. Do not be confused. You will also come across general debt. What is a general debt? The debt of central government plus state government, it is referred to as general debt. For example, in the newspapers, you will come across a statement saying the general debt of India is somewhere around 90% of GDP. Do not by heart it. It will keep on changing from one year to next year. Do not by heart it. The general debt of India is somewhere around 90% of GDP. Public debt is somewhere around 60% of GDP. This is the basic difference, or this is the basic concept of the public debt, general debt, the fiscal deficit. Shall I go to the next point here? Shall I go to the next point? Is the three terminologies okay with all of you? You should not have any doubt regarding this. Right? Now, apart from this, right, there is one more concept here. Let me introduce that as well here only. Apart from this, there is one more concept. Okay, have a look at this. The public debt, please look at the table here and please do not by heart the table. UPSC will not ask you this table. Please do not by heart it. Have a look at this. Public debt is basically the amount of the liability that the government of India has, which they will charge on consolidated fund of India. That is, how much money government will take from consolidated fund of India and pay it because it has borrowed from the market. Right? That is public debt. And the public debt can be internal in nature as well as external in nature. What is the meaning of it? Government has borrowed from the domestic market. Government has borrowed from the external market as well. So internal plus external. That is basically the concept of public debt. But apart from this, right, there is also two more components here. Please have a look at it. The other liabilities, that is from the public account, and extra budgetary resources. Important, let's go one by one. Right, what is this public account other liabilities? When you're discussing the polity, you'll come across three types of accounts. Follow this carefully. When you're discussing polity, you'll come across three types of account. One is consolidated fund of India. Second one is contingency fund of India. Third one is public account. Now, the basic idea of a public account is simply this. The government is responsible for any money that is collected and kept under the public account. I will repeat the statement. I'll give you examples. Government is responsible for any money that is collected and kept under the public account. Meaning what? Imagine, right? I'll just give a simple example, right? Postal deposits. I'll give a very simple example. Postal deposits. Now you tell me the amount of money that you have kept in the postal deposits, who is responsible for it? Who is responsible? Government of India. I hope you understand. You will invest in, let's say, Sukanya Samruddhi Yojana, SSY, Sukanya Samruddhi Yojana. You have invested in, let's say, National Savings Certificate, NSC, Kisan Vikas Patra, etc. Now, who is responsible for all of this money? Who is responsible? Government of India. So, all this money for which Government of India is responsible, it is kept under account referred to as a public account. Now, because the government is responsible, can I call this as a liability of the government? Just think of it. Because the Government of India is responsible for this money, can I call this as a liability of the government? Again, the answer is yes. Right? So, there is one more liability. Public debt is a liability. They will have to pay it. But they will take the money from Consolidated Fund of India. Plus, they have a public account, which is basically the schemes of Government of India, which are run, money is collected under that. Again, the Government of India has the liability to repay. But apart from this, there is one more component, very, very famous, concept of extra budgetary resources. Idea of extra budgetary resources. Let me explain this. Follow this very, very carefully. Under the extra budgetary resources, what do you mean by extra budgetary resources? Look at the name. Just look at the name. Extra budgetary resources. That is any kind of resource that can be used by the government going beyond the budget. We are not using any budgetary amount here. Apart from the budgetary resources, we are collecting and using certain amount of money. That is extra budgetary resources, EBR. Let me explain this. There is this concept of off-budget borrowing. Very often it is cited in the newspaper. I'll give a hint. 3 days ago, this was mentioned in Hindu newspaper. Off-budget borrowings. Right? I'm using the term off-budget borrowings. Some of the experts will also say off-budget liabilities. Because borrowing means a liability. It's basically the other side of the coin. Now, what do you mean by off-budget borrowing? Let me give a very simple example. Imagine here is the central government. Central government in the budget will allocate, let's say, 1,000 crore rupees for a project. Simple. Will allocate 1,000 crore rupees for the budget, which means the government has taken the parliamentary approval, will withdraw 1,000 crore rupees from the Consolidated Fund of India. That's point number 1. Let me go to point number 2. The project actually doesn't need 1,000. The project requires, let's say, 3,000 crore rupees. For the implementation, more than 1,000 crore is required. But how much has been allocated by the government? 1,000 crore. Now, I'll take one more authority here. Imagine this is either a National Highways Authority of India or Food Corporation of India. Any one of the agencies. Right? Let's say Food Corporation of India. The project cost is actually 3,000 crore. Government has allocated 1,000 crore. Now, what the central government will ask FCI to do is, they will ask FCI to borrow 2,000 crore rupees from the market. Sir, how is that possible? FCI will issue bonds. Simple. FCI will issue simply bonds in the market, collect 2,000 crore and have a look at this. FCI will bring in 2,000 crore rupees and spend on the project. Now, how much funds are required for the project? 3,000 crore. Government through budget allocated 1,000 crore. But going beyond the budget, without following a budgetary process, government has asked Government has directed the agencies owned by it to borrow money from the market and spend for the project. A simple question. This 2000 crore rupees, do you think it has come from Consolidated Fund of India? Just think of it. Do you think this 2000 crore, it has come from CFI? Answer is no. Because if it comes from CFI, government requires parliamentary approval. It has not done it. So government through FCI will borrow from the market, not directly, indirectly, will borrow from the market, spend on the project, ensuring total expenditure is met. Now this 2000 crore rupees is simply nothing but off budget borrowing. Is it okay? This 2000 crore rupees is nothing but off budget borrowing, right? What do you mean by off budget borrowing? Apart from the budgetary resources, we are using other methods, right, to raise money, to collect resources for expenditure purposes. And the speciality of off budget borrowing is no parliamentary approval is required for it. Right? I hope you understand. No parliament's approval is not required here. You have simply gone to the market, FC has gone, it has borrowed, it will use it for expenditure. Now that is point number 2. Point number 3. Who will pay this 2000 crore along with interest? The central government. In the next year budget or a year after that, some of the expenses that will be incurred by the government will be, let's say, 2000 crore rupee plus interest to Food Corporation of India. In the subsequent years, government will pay this off, right? But earlier, in order to meet the expenses requirement, the borrowing will be done. That is point number 3. Point number 4. What is other specialty of off-budget borrowing? No doubt, off-budget borrowing is the liability of the government, but it is not counted as a part of fiscal deficit. Right? I hope you understand. Off-budget borrowing is the liability of the government, but it is not counted as a part of fiscal deficit. Right? Some of you will ask me why. Have a look at this. Has the government of India borrowed the 2000 crore directly? Just look at it. I hope you understand. Has government of India borrowed the 2000 crore? Did government of India issue bonds in the market? No. Government has not issued it. Government agency, somebody else has issued in the market. Government says, you issue, you collect the 2000, you use it. Next year, I will give you that 2000 crores. I hope you understand that. And literally don't take next year only. After 2 years, they may give it. After 3 years, they may give it. But essentially what has happened here? Government is not directly borrowing, hence will not be counted as a part of fiscal deficit. And second, because ultimately the amount is paid by the government, it will be counted as liability of the government. Any difficulty in understanding this? Now have a look at the total liabilities. Now have a look at the total liabilities of the government. Total liabilities of the government are under 3 components. One is a public debt. Second one is the public account, because government is responsible for that. And the third one is any extra budgetary resources such as off-budget liabilities or off-budget borrowings, which are again the liabilities of the union government itself. So this is how the public account or public debt and total liabilities of the government are calculated. Any difficulty in understanding this? Let me know. You should be very clear. Right? If I say that is public debt is equal to total liabilities of the government, answer will be wrong. Public debt is that liability which will be repaid from taking the money from Consolidated Fund of India. Right? And the beauty of this is government has directly borrowed. I hope you understand. Right? Beauty of this public debt is government has borrowed it directly. Whereas extra budgetary resources, government has never borrowed it directly. It is not even counted as part of fiscal deficit. Right? Somebody else has borrowed on behalf of the government, but government will repay it in the future. That is also liability. And third one is public account, because the government is or government agencies or through the government schemes the money is collected. Government is responsible for this. Hence, public account is also counted as a liability of the government. Right? Interest will be paid by FCI or Government of India? You tell me. My dear, you tell me. Do you think Food Corporation of India will pay interest because government has asked them to borrow it? How does it make sense? Right? Obviously, it has to be paid by the Government of India. Okay? Now, right, this is a discussion, right? So please be very careful. What this committee recommended was very simple. You always target fiscal deficit and revenue deficit. But apart from these two, now try to reduce the public debt of the government as well. Try to reduce public debt. And targets were given. Please have a look at it. Do not by heart the numbers. Do not by heart the numbers. Now these are outdated. By financial year 23, please have a look at this. By financial year 23, the public debt, that is of the central government obviously, was supposed to be reduced to 38.7% of GDP. The revenue deficit was supposed to be reduced to 0.8% of GDP. And the fiscal deficit was supposed to be reduced to 2.5% of GDP. Now, do you think we will be able to meet any of the targets? We are almost at the end of financial year 23, by the way. Do you think we are able to meet, or we will be able to meet any of the targets? We are very, very far away from this. Very, very far away. 40% target, right? Again, I'm rounding it off. 40% for public debt. Ours is around 60% plus now. Right? Fiscal deficit 2.5%, 6.4%. Right? So I hope you understand we are far away from meeting the target. Again, that doesn't mean that the government has purposely, right, violated the target. Absolutely no. All right, that is not the meaning that you need to carry away from this. Because of certain external events as well as internal events, the targets have gone beyond the control. That is, many of the years, the borrowings of Government of India have gone beyond the control because of pandemic. Right? Who can help in that particular situation? Okay, so to achieve the targets, yearly targets have been proposed. I've just shown you the yearly targets, but again, these targets are outdated now. We will not be able to meet them. Now next, it recommended Autonomous Fiscal Council. Right? It recommended Autonomous Fiscal Council. What is this idea of a fiscal council? There will be an expert committee. Simple. Autonomous fiscal. Autonomous means independent. Right? So there will be an autonomous group of experts who will give recommendation to Government of India. What kind of recommendations? One, whether the Government of India is going to meet the targets or not. They will give recommendations. They will give advice to government. What policy should be adopted? What policy should not be adopted by the government? They will advise the government. In what way the government can meet these targets? They will give advice to government. Should government change any of their strategies? They will give the advice to the government. So Autonomous Fiscal Council was also recommended. We have not implemented it. Government of India so far has not set up a fiscal council in India. Next, the grounds under which the relaxation was provided. For example, before the break, I said under certain situations, you are allowed to basically, right, extrapolate or extend the targets of fiscal deficit. For example, I said national security. Right, I said war with other countries, natural calamities, etc., etc. So what should be the parameters which should be considered if you want to, right, basically give a relaxation to these targets? They were also defined under this. And finally, the committee has recommended that for every state, the 15th Finance Commission should look into it and give recommendation in order to reduce the public debt. Because remember this, under the N.K. Singh Review Committee, the committee recommended that the total debt, the general debt has to be 60% of GDP. Is it okay? The general debt has to be 60% of GDP, out of which 40% of GDP would be the target for the union government, central government, and 20% of GDP should be the target of public debt for the states put together. So totally, if you take the center as well as the state, the general debt should be targeted at 60%. That was the target that was given by the committee. Again, we have not been able to meet. We have not been able to meet because of the pandemic. So these are some of the very important recommendations of NK Singh committee or FRBM review committee. Any doubts in any one of them? Please do let me know. Any doubts in any of the recommendations? Or I'll go to the next one, the discussion of factors or let's say certain features related to public debt. Now, out of the overall debt, what are the features? Let's go one by one. Out of the overall debt, that is central plus state, majority of the debt is because of the central government debt. Generally, how much? If you look at the data, somewhere around 70% of the general debt is central government debt. And that makes perfect sense because the central government is responsible for the stability of the economy. Central government borrows much higher amount of money compared to state governments. So generally around 70% plus will be the central government debt out of the general debt. Second, out of the central debt, only a fraction of it is external. If I want to give you the latest data as per the economic survey, 4.9% of the borrowings, that is a public debt of the government, is external in nature. Any difficulty in understanding this? 4.9% of the debt is external in nature, around 95% is internal in nature. The government also has a portfolio of majority long-term or long tenure bonds. Now, what is the advantage of having this? Like we have discussed earlier, if you have borrowed money and if you have to repay in the next 1 year, there is a lot of pressure on the finances of the government. But you have borrowed money and you will have to repay, let's say after 10 years on an average, don't you think you have more time to arrange your finances? So more time has been provided. Now that flexibility is there for the government to arrange their finances. So that is, the government has a portfolio of majority of long tenure bonds. As per latest data, the average maturity of the bond that is issued by the government is somewhere over 10 years, which is considered good. I hope you understand. Over 10 years means what? The average time period when the bonds will become mature and the government will repay the amount is more than 10 years. So government has a lot of time to arrange its finances. That is the meaning. The government debt is characterized by low foreign exchange risk. Slightly technical, let me explain it. Let me explain it with an example here. Imagine today $1 is equal to 50 rupees. Understand this. Imagine today $1 is equal to 50 rupees. Now after 1 year, $1 becomes is equal to 60 rupees. Is it okay? $1 becomes 60 rupees. Now simple question to you people. If you have borrowed $1 last year and you will have to repay $1 this year, don't you think in terms of rupees you are paying more? I hope you understand. If you have borrowed $1, you are supposed to repay $1. I'm not talking about rupees here because you have borrowed, let's say, from USA. Will you borrow in terms of rupees from USA? Majority of it will be in terms of dollars. So when you have borrowed in dollars, you want to repay in terms of dollars. Any variation in the currency like this, technically this is called as depreciation of rupee. Don't worry, we'll come across this tomorrow. Right? Pakka will come across this tomorrow. So whenever there is a depreciation of rupee like this, don't you think the amount of dollars that you are going to pay or amount of money that you are going to pay for the same dollar would be slightly larger? But the advantage, not problem here, but the advantage for Government of India is most of the borrowing that they have done is internal in nature. Only a small part of it is external in nature. That is the advantage here. So the exchange rate risk is very low. India's public debt is lower than many of the other countries. Right? Many of the other countries, when you compare India's debt to them, the debt of India is very low. Right? So these are some of the features which are associated with public debt. Can I go to the next one? So this is in detail about the concept of budgeting, right? How budget is introduced, passed, etc., etc., etc. The next concept that you need to understand is Finance Commission, right? Important for UPSC examination. Next concept is Finance Commission. Now, before explaining to you Finance Commission, I just want you to understand a terminology, tied funds and untied funds. Tied funds and untied funds. Important. Tied and untied funds. Now, what do you mean by tied funds or untied funds? Many of the experts will also use another name for this: conditional and unconditional funds. What do you mean by this? I'll give a very simple example. Imagine you're the central government. Okay, 640, I'm making you Prime Minister. Enjoy. You are the central government. You will allocate certain funds to me, but with the condition that I will have to use these funds for construction of road. Is it okay? You have given me money, but the condition is what? I can use the money only for construction of the road. These kinds of funds are referred to as tied funds. Right? These are referred to as tied funds, conditional transfers. Whereas you will also give me, let's say, 100 crore rupees, but no conditions attached to it. Right? No tying of the funds. You'll simply tell me, sir, here you go, 100 crore, you use it for any purposes. You decide for what you want to use it. These are called as untied funds. And understand the next point very carefully. From the central government, lot of transfers will happen to states. I hope you understand this. From the central government, lot of funds are transferred to states. And a large percentage of it is because of the Finance Commission recommendation of devolution. Remember this very carefully. Right? I'll repeat the statement here. Earlier also we have discussed the concept of devolution. Sir, where did we discuss the concept of devolution? Cesses and surcharges. Last week when we discussed taxation, I told you why cesses and surcharges are very much relevant. And please tell me, don't you think in the last 2 weeks, lot of discussion is happening related to cesses and surcharges? Why the states are worried about cesses and surcharges? Right? What is the central government doing with cesses and surcharges, etc., etc. So please be very careful. So from the central government to states, lot of funds will be transferred. But a substantial amount of the funds which are transferred is because of the devolution formula recommended by the Finance Commission. And this tax devolution is very, very important because these are untied funds. Is it okay? Because these are untied. Untied means what? Any amount of money that the state receives because of the recommendation of tax devolution formula, state government can decide for what purpose they want to use it. They want to use it for, right, project A, they want to launch social welfare, they want to do this X, Y, Z, entirely dependent upon the state itself. That is the importance of the tax devolution formula. Now, before I go to the Finance Commission, all of you remember the vertical devolution and horizontal devolution? Please do let me know. I've discussed it. Please do let me know. Do you all remember the concept of vertical devolution and horizontal devolution? If you say yes, I'll go forward. If you say already said no, right? So by default, your answer is no. Arey Baba, then you'll have to revise, no? Then it simply means you people are not revising. Right? Very easy trick to find out whether you're reading or not. Right? So understand this carefully. Quickly, have a look at this. It's basically a repetition now. Right? Here is the central government. Central government will impose and collect lot of these taxes. I'll call these taxes as pan-India taxes. Sir, why these are called as pan-India taxes? These can be imposed throughout India and collected. Best example, corporate taxes, income taxes. Now, when the central government will impose and collect these pan-India taxes, all the money should not be going to central government. Why? Right? If all these taxes go to central government, what will the state governments have to spend money? And don't you think states which are promoting industries should also get certain profits from the companies? States which are promoting, let's say, employment generation should be getting part of income taxes. It's only fair to say that they should also get part of it. So what we do is, whenever the central government will collect these taxes, we'll simply call this collection, that is the amount, as a divisible pool. Right? You can call this as a central divisible pool. or a divisible pool of taxes, whatever you want, but the logic remains same. That is, central government has imposed collected taxes, we'll call this as a divisible pool. Now from the divisible pool, Finance Commission will recommend. From the divisible pool, Finance Commission will recommend how much money should be going to central government, how much money should go to state governments. Right, remember this. How much money should be going to the central government, how much money should be going to states. Right, this formula means what? Let's say 40%, 60%, 70%, 30%. This is what I meant by formula. This formula is called as vertical devolution formula. Is it okay? This formula is referred to as vertical devolution formula. Vertical means what? Between center and states. Second, now certain amount of money is given to states. Now the question arises, how much should UP get? How much Bihar, Rajasthan, Punjab, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, etc. How much everyone should get out of it? For that, again one more formula is given. From the states, how much should go to S1, how much should go to S2, etc. like this. One more formula is given, which is called as horizontal devolution. This is referred to as horizontal devolution. Now, is the logic clear with you? Right? What do you mean by vertical devolution? What do you mean by horizontal devolution? And this is right very much rational. Right? There is certain logical thinking into it. Sir, what is the reason? Why are we doing it? Don't you think between center and state, center has more powers to impose and collect tax revenues? Just think of it. Between center and state, center has more power to collect revenues, but expenses are incurred by the state also. So don't you want to give part of the amount that you have collected to states, so that that imbalance, that disequilibrium that has been created will be addressed. Now after that, there is one more issue. All the states are not one and the same. Some of the states have better revenue generation capability, and some of the states right have lower generation capacity. Don't you want to address it? That is a precise reason. Again, right, one more formula is provided, which is called as horizontal devolution. Okay, so this is vertical, this is horizontal. Sir, you have not explained this in the last week. You simply told about divisible pool. If you have not explained it, then my mistake. I've explained it now, right? At least now it should be clear to you. Now, what are the points, important points regarding Finance Commission? First one, it is set up under Article 280, which means it's a constitutional body. Any article is there in the Constitution related to a body or an authority, constitutional body. First. Second, the Government of India, and when I say Government of India, obviously President of India. So Government of India will set up Finance Commission for 5 years. That is, the commission is set up, recommendations of the commission are applicable for a duration of 5 years. For example, right now, 15th Finance Commission recommendations are applicable, and the duration is 2021 to 2026. Simple. Duration is 2021 to 2026. Now, next point. Are the recommendations of the Finance Commission, right, are they binding on the government? The Constitution says the recommendations are advisory in nature. What do you mean by advisory in nature? Not binding. The recommendations are advisory in nature. Central government generally accepts it, but there is no compulsion on the center to accept it. That's a third point. Fourth point. The composition of Finance Commission is 5 people, 1 plus 4. 1 is the chairman, 4 are the members of the Finance Commission. Right now for the 15th Finance Commission, the chairman is Mr. N.K. Singh. The same person who was the chairman of FRBM Review Committee is the same person, Mr. N.K. Singh. Next, what are the terms of references? Terms of reference means what? under what recommendations should be provided by the committee. Because have a look at this. Imagine Government of India will say, you Mr. XYZ, you are the chairman of this committee. Now, don't you think you will ask the question to the government, sir, okay, I am the chairman of the committee, but tell me on what I should give you recommendations, right? Can it be open-ended? Open-ended means, right, can Government of India say, give whatever you want, study in whichever area you want to study, and give whatever recommendations you want to give? How is that possible? So don't you think certain reference points will be given to you? That is called as terms of reference, right? So first one, distribution of taxes between center and states. That is the first one. Second one, on what basis grants should be provided by the central government to the state government? On what basis? Right? On what parameters grants should be given to the states? How do you increase the consolidated fund of the states? This is for states. Just like the central government, even the state governments have consolidated fund. So how do you increase the collection of money within the consolidated fund of the states? And any other matter that would be referred by the center to the commission. So these are the four, but please remember this. The most important one is this one. Is it okay? The most important one, it is this one. That is the distribution of the tax proceeds between the center and the states. Now come to the 15th Finance Commission. Two formulas. One is a vertical devolution formula. Second one is horizontal devolution formula. Now in the case of vertical devolution formula, the 15th Finance Commission has recommended 41% divisibility. That is, basically, let's say the divisible pool, I'll just take a hypothetical number. The divisible pool, let's say, has 500 crore rupees. Out of 500 crore rupees, 41% will be given to states and remaining 59% will be given to center. I hope you understand what is the 41% formula mean here. Share of the states out of the central divisible pool, whatever is the divisible pool, out of that 41% will be given to all the states, remaining 59% will go to central government. Is the point clear to you people? Because I'll go to horizontal devolution formula now. This is very simple, right? And again, some of you might simply ask, sir, why it has been changed? If you look at the 14th Finance Commission, which was implemented, 41% of what? My dear, please look at the top of the table. Look at the top of the table. Share of the states out of the central divisible pool. Now, if you ask me, sir, what is central divisible pool? Then it simply means you did not even listen to a single word that we have discussed for the last 15 minutes. Right? So, earlier, 14th Finance Commission recommended 42%. And 15th Finance Commission recommended 41%. Sir, earlier there has been a rise. Now why there is a change? Simple reason was given by the 15th FC. The 15th FC said, we wanted to keep it at 42% only. I hope you understand. We wanted to keep it at 42 only. But if you look at the time period, between 14th FC to 15th FC, the number of states has been reduced by 1. I repeat, between 14th to 15th FC, the number of states has come down by 1. What do you mean by this? Jammu and Kashmir, which was the state earlier, now it is not a state, it is a union territory. And who will take care of the finances of the union territory? It goes to central government directly. That is, there is basically a connection between center and UTs. Now it is not a state, hence I will adjust it. I will adjust the vertical devolution formula from 42% to 41%. Right? So this is basically the idea of vertical devolution formula. Now I'll come back to this, don't worry. What about, right? Again, don't worry about this also. What about horizontal devolution? Don't worry about previous two slides. I'll go back to them. Please have patience. What about the horizontal devolution? That is, let's say certain amount will come to all the states. Now the question arises, how much each of the state will get. The horizontal devolution formula is determined based on 6 parameters. And my recommendation to all of you by the way, by heart all the 6 parameters along with weightages. Why weightages? What is the importance of weightages? I'll explain that. But my recommendation to all of you will be simply by heart the weightages. One way to look at it is arrange them in descending order, arrange them in ascending order as per your convenience. I'll go by descending order. The highest amount of weightage has been provided to income distance. Now, many of you will try to do a PhD thesis on this and will never understand what they actually mean by income distance. For example, this is the definition given by Finance Commission. Income distance represents the distance between the per capita GSDP between the highest state to the lowest state. Now, I am pretty sure all of you have not understood anything, and that is not required also for UPSC. Right? Argument is simple. There are certain technical languages used in the Finance Commission. Is it required for GS paper 3? I will say absolutely not. Right? Because again, understand this. What is the idea of income distance? I'll repeat the definition again. Don't write it down. You'll have a heart attack later when you're reading it. And this no way will be asked by UPSC. What is this idea of income distance? It is the difference between the per capita gross state domestic product between the highest state to the lowest state. Now, what do you mean by that? Highest per capita GSDP for how many years? 3-year average is taken, 26 to 2019. How do you calculate it? No way relevant for UPSC. Please don't waste your time. Right? If you are preparing maybe for the optional paper, then no option for you. You will have to read the complete report of Finance Commission. But for GS paper 3, just by heart it. More than sufficient. Highest weightage is given to income distance. Followed by income distance, there are two more very important parameters, population and area. There is a next important parameter, that is a demographic performance. Now, many of you are typing, sir, what is demographic performance? Demographic performance represents or is represented by total fertility rate of a state. Now, you are expected to read about total fertility rate, how TFR is calculated for all the states, which is not at all needed here. Right? Apart from this, 10% is given for forest and ecology. Right? Again, there's a definition for that. Please don't worry about all of it. And lowest weightage has been given for tax and fiscal efforts. So these are the 6 parameters. What I would do if I were writing the exam is simply by heart them in descending order of their weightage. So that whatever kind of questions are asked, and if they want to ask question, they will ask this way only. Arrange them in ascending order of the weightage, descending order of the weightage, highest weighted, lowest weighted, etc. Now, some of you are asking, sir, what is the use of these weightages? Let me show a simple calculation to you. Simple calculation. And this will not be asked in UPSC. Please have a look at this. Because you are asking, I know that people will ask. Doesn't matter what I say. Sir, what is the importance of weightages? Right, let's have a look at it. Imagine the total transfer to the states is 100 crore rupees from the divisible pool. And rather than 6 parameters, we are using 2 parameters. I hope you understand. Rather than 6, only 2. One is population, second one is area. Population is given the weightage of 40, area is given the weightage of 60. Of course, total has to be 100. I hope you understand this. The total weightage has to be 100%. So I am taking 2 parameters, total is 100. Now take the divisible pool allocation to the states, divide it as per the weightage. Point number 1, divide it as per the weightage. So population will get how much money? 40 crores. Area will get how much money? 60 crore. Now the question arises, how this 40 crore will be distributed between the states? How the 60 crore will be distributed between the states? Now have a look at state 1, state 2. Don't say, sir, but in India there are more than 2 states. Of course, yes. You know that, I know that. Should we take all the 28 states, 6 parameters and calculate for all of it? If we do that, it will take somewhere around, let's say, right, 1 day or 2 days. After that, nothing will be asked in UPSC. So don't worry about it. Have a look at this. Imagine two states are there. Population, right, in the first stage, state 1 has a 30% weightage, and state 2 population has a weightage of 70. Meaning what? If let's say there are, right, let's say 10 lakh people in both the states. All I'm trying to say is state 1 has the 3 lakh population and state 2 has a 7 lakh population. Look at the weightages, you will understand. And same thing for area as well. Now take this 40 crore rupees, divide this into 30% and 70%. You will get 12 crore for state 1, 28 crore for state 2. Take this 60 crore, again divide it based on the weightages of area for both of the states. That is 20% will become 12 crore, 80% will become 48 crore. Done? Right, so this is how, right, this is how generally the allocations are made by the Finance Commission. And again, this is just an example. Some of you are asking, sir, but in table it is different, what you are using is different. This is just an example. How weightages are used, how population is used, etc., etc., etc. Right? Is the logic okay here? Sir, should you take all the 6 parameters? Should I take all the 6 parameters to calculate in UPSC exam? 1, don't calculate in the first place. Second point, trust me on this. If you don't trust me, at least look at the question papers of UPSC. They will not ask you for any calculations unless your optional is mathematics. Okay, so this is how weightages are used. Now, is it okay if I ask you one question based on it? If population is 15% or weightage of population is 15%, is it fair to say that the states with very high population would be getting more amount of funds because of it? I'll repeat it. Just have a look at it. If the population weightage is 15%, is it okay if I say states which have very high population will be receiving a lot of funds because of it? Answer is yes, by the way. Answer is yes, by the way, right? That's fact. And that's a precise reason. If you find out, which is again not required for UPSC, if you find out which state will receive how much amount of money because of 15th FC recommendation, Uttar Pradesh, UP will receive huge amount of funds. I hope you understand. Uttar Pradesh will receive huge amount of funds because of a weightage of population. Okay, done. Now, one more calculation, not required for UPSC, just have a look at it. As per the formula that has been used by the 15th FC, the total amount of divisible pool for 5 years will be 135 lakh crore rupees. I hope total amount of tax collection from 21 to 26 will be 135 lakh crore rupees. But please understand, all this gross tax collection will not be divisible pool. Why? Cesses and surcharges are never distributed to the states. Center will keep it with itself. So if you remove all these numbers, how much is the divisible pool? The divisible pool will be 103 lakh crore rupees. And the share of the states, that is 41%, will become how much? 41% of this will become 42.2 lakh crore rupees. So the tax devolution, I repeat, the tax devolution for 5 years, 21 to 26, as per the 15th Finance Commission recommendation from the center to state will be totally 42 lakh crore rupees. That's point number 1. Is it the only type of transfer that will happen because of the Finance Commission recommendation? No. Finance Commission will recommend a devolution of taxes. Apart from that, grants will also be provided. Grants means what? Assistance. Simple. For development of infrastructure, for development and maintenance of roads, for promotion of education, rural health care. Center will also provide certain assistance to the states, that is grants. right? So the total amount of grants as per the recommendations of the 15th FC will be 10.33 lakh crore rupees. Now, two type of statements can be made here. Follow this very carefully. The tax devolution because of the 15th FC is 42 lakh crore rupees. The total amount of transfers because of the 15th FC recommendation will be 52 lakh crore rupees. Any difficulty, please do let me know. I'll repeat it again. The tax devolution because of the 15th FC between 21 to 26 will be 42 lakh crore rupees, and the total transfers from the center to the states because of the 15th FC will be 52 lakh crore rupees. Both the statements are clear to you? Can I go to the next one? Both the statements. Do not be confused in UPSC regarding both of them, right? Both of them are different. Can I go to the next point here? Nobody wants to answer. 7 o'clock, everybody has slept off already. Can I go to the next one? When you say no, what do you mean by no? I do not understand. Is it clear? Right? Is it clear or not? Difficult? My dear. Come back to the basics. Because you don't focus on the basics. Very simple. You forget what you have learnt in the last 10 minutes and then suddenly, right, get surprised by the fact. So have a look at this. One is a tax devolution. Terms of reference, please have a look at it. One is tax devolution. So transfers will happen because of devolution formula. Second one is grants are provided because of the recommendation of 15th FC. At least this is clear now, right? Because of the 15th FC recommendations, grants are given and tax devolution is also done. I'm saying tax devolution based on the formula, if you go, it will be 42 lakh crore rupees between 2021 to 2026. Apart from this, grants are also given by the center to state. That comes somewhere around 10 lakh crore rupees for the same duration. Now I'll make two statements. One, the total amount of funds which are transferred from center to state because of the 15th FC recommendation is 52 lakh crore rupees. Total amount of funds are transferred. Second, the tax devolution that will happen from the center to state is 42 lakh crore rupees. At least now it should be clear. That is exactly what is given in the table here. Have a look at this. That is exactly what is given in the table. I said states' share will be 42, total transfer to the states will be 52 lakh crore rupees. Can be asked in UPSC prelims. Please be very, very careful. Be very careful. Now, apart from this, just for sake of understanding, glance through the table. Do not by heart it. Very difficult. Trust me. In fact, if I wanted to make it difficult, this itself is difficult. I know that. If I wanted to make it much more difficult, I would have given you from first Finance Commission. After looking at this, right, I know after looking at this itself, some of you would have already have a heart attack. And imagine from first Finance Commission to 15th Finance Commission. Right, so all of that is not required. Just a glance. What you should focus here? What is the population criteria for 15th FC? What is the population criteria? The weightage of 15% is not given for population of 1971. Rather, all the 15% weightage for population is given for 2011 population. 2011 census population has been considered for population criteria under 15th FC. Very important. Please remember that. Because previously, if you talk about 12th, if you talk about 13th, if you talk about 14th, the population criteria that they chose was basically 1971 population. But 15th FC for the first time ever has taken the population criteria of only 2011. 1971 population has not been counted here. Right? That is very important. Please glance through these particular numbers. Do not by heart the full table. Trust me, please do not by heart the full table. Not relevant. Right? Sometimes UPSC will ask you, what has changed, right? What has changed between, let's say, the Finance Commission, 14th Finance Commission with 15th Finance Commission? What has changed? You will see that population criteria has completely changed, right? Earlier, population of 1971 as well as 21 were considered. Now, only population of 2011 is considered, right? Earlier, the weightage for income distance was 50. Now, it has been reduced to 45%. Earlier, we simply covered forest. What is the forest in the area or the state that was covered? But now it has been shifted to forest and ecology. Now you'll ask me, sir, what do you mean by forest and ecology? Forest and ecology talks about the canopy of the forest, right? What is the canopy of a forest? What kind of a forest is present in the state? So that is covered here, right? So that is the reason certain parameters have been changed. Just glance through it. Do not by heart the table. You will not be able to remember everything, right? And moreover, it is very, very confusing. What weightage, how much has been given, where it has been given, etc. Done. So these are the recommendations, vertical and horizontal devolution formula given by 15th FC. Apart from this, grants. If you remember some time ago, I said total amount of grants has been more than 10 lakh crore rupees. The total amount of grants allocated under the 15th FC for 5-year duration is 10 lakh crore rupees. How these grants will go? These are the areas where the grants are provided. Just for sake of writing the exams, or let's say mains paper, by heart it. My recommendation is be on a safer side, by heart it. Right, for example, revenue deficit grant is 2.9 lakh crore rupees. What do you mean by revenue deficit grant? There are many states which will suffer from revenue deficit. Let me know if you disagree. Just like the central government, there are also states which will suffer from revenue deficit. Now, central government says, I will provide assistance to them in the form of grant. That is called as a revenue deficit grant. Right, so totally 2.9 lakh crore rupees for 17 states, but over a period of time, all the 17 states will not get it. Initially, 17 states will be there. After a couple of years, will be reduced to 11 states. After a couple of years, will be reduced to 8 states, etc. Sector-specific grants, construction and maintenance of road, maintenance of school infrastructure, promotion of agriculture sector. For these kind of sectors, 8 sectors are covered. 1.3 lakh crore rupees has been provided for 5 years. Right, 1.3 lakh crore for 5 years in 8 sectors. Certain states will be getting state-specific grants. Grants for the local bodies will be provided for various reasons, not just for one reason, for various reasons. And for disaster management also, 1.6 lakh crore rupees worth of grants are provided. So this in totality will give you more than 10 lakh crore worth of grants in aid for the states. Apart from this, in context of fiscal roadmap, the FC states that states and center, whatever targets are given under the FRBM, they should simply try to stick to FRBM targets. Right? The argument is, even if the Finance Commission will give recommendation, there is uncertainty in the market. And I hope you understand, this is from 21 to 26, 2021 to 2026. So there is volatility, uncertainty in the market. Even if I give a recommendation, right, I don't know what is going to happen to the market. So there are targets under FRBM. Let them stick to those targets itself. Full disclosures and elimination of extra budgetary borrowings. Very important. I hope you remember the concept of extra budgetary borrowings. What the commission says is, whenever the central government or for that matter state governments go for extra budgetary borrowings like this, it is not counted in calculation of fiscal deficit. And don't you think it also means that there is no transparency in the finances of the government? I hope you understand this. Right? The finances of the government are not transparent enough. How will the market investors understand how much is the total liability of the government? How will other investors in the market understand what is the borrowing of the government of India, etc.? So extra budgetary resources, first make it much more transparent, and over a period of time simply eliminate it. Do not practice extra budgetary borrowings, and set up an expert panel which will give recommendations for a sound financial management system. Right, so these are some of the recommendations regarding fiscal roadmap. Next, regarding taxation, widen the tax base. Important, remember this, widen the tax base, broaden the tax base, so that the amount of taxes that you're collecting will automatically improve. Second, you'll have to streamline tax rate. I'll give an example. Don't you think under GST there is a requirement of streamlining? I hope you understand. And read newspapers for the next 2 or 3 days. Trust me on this. Read newspaper for the next 2 or 3 days. Right? Many of you are asking why. 49th GST Council meeting is happening now. 49th GST Council meeting is happening. There will be some of the very important points of discussion related to GST in the next couple of days. So streamline the tax rate. Don't you think there is a requirement of streamlining GST rates? Or for that matter, capital gains tax, etc. So increase the capacity as well as expertise. Capacity and expertise means number of officials who are there in the tax department should be increased. Training should be provided to them. The manpower should be built or increased so that the tax revenue collection efficiency increases. And regarding GST, it says that there are certain challenges. Government should address these particular challenges. For example, collection, there is volatility. Volatility means uneven amount of revenue collection under GST. Second, expectation of GST revenue collection is very high. Actual GST revenue collection is lower. So these are some of the important recommendations which are provided regarding taxation system. And finally, defense management. The 15th Finance Commission has recommended a fund within the defense sector. For defense sector, one fund has been recommended. MFDIS, Modernization Fund for Defense and Internal Security, or else in Hindi, this is referred as Rashtriya Sauraksha Naivedyam Kosh. RSNK, Rashtriya Sauraksha or Suraksha Naivedyam Kosh. Right, so this fund has been recommended, not yet set up, recommended. Now from where the money will be kept for this particular fund, for what purposes they will use it, I'll come to that. From where will the money be, right, derived for this particular fund? The commission says, or the 15th FC says, whenever the defense assets are sold, imagine there is a defense public sector enterprise that has been privatized, which means you're collecting money, transfer that money into Suraksha Naivedyam Kosh. Defense land is there. You will sell the defense land. You will collect money, transfer it here. You will lease the defense land, let's say, to the state government. You have collected money, transfer it here. And some of the funds directly from Consolidated Fund of India, you can transfer it here. So there are different sources which have been recommended to shore up, to basically collect the funds under Suraksha Naivedyam Kosh. Now, what is the use of the fund? What is the utility of it? Right? One, you can use the funds for capital investment. That is, you can modernize, right, armed forces in India. Second, you can use the funds, right, to basically modernize police forces. Let the Ministry of Home Affairs find out which is eligible for this. You can use the funds to modernize the police forces. Third, a small component out of this Suraksha Naivedyam Kosh, you can use it to provide welfare, right, to separately keep it as a welfare fund for our soldiers as well as paramilitary personnel. Right, so these are some of the recommendations, again recommendations which are yet to be implemented by the government in order to shore up a defense fund like this. Okay, so all these are the recommendations of 15th FC. So this is the end of the discussion regarding 15th FC. Now anybody has a doubt regarding FC or budget, please raise the doubt. Let me address it, because after this you have questions. Simple. After this you have questions. You have any kind of a doubt, please let me know right now. Sudarshan, my dear, it is not Sudarshan. It is a Suraksha. Right? Suraksha. Right? So it's not Sudarshan. Any other doubts? Any other doubts? Right? Come on, wake up now. Right? Another half an hour is there. Don't sleep. Right? Another half an hour is there. Please wake up. Any doubts that you people have? If you do not have, zero budget. Zero budget basically is a practice of the government wherein the earlier allocations are ignored. The next or current allocations are based on the requirement in the budget. Simple. Based on the requirements, the funds would be allocated. Whatever were the earlier allocations, they will not be considered. That is the practice which is called as a zero-based budgeting. Sir, budget estimates and revised estimates. Now understand this. What do you mean by budget estimates and revised estimates? Anyways, there was a question, I would have explained it. Anyways, come to this. What is the idea of a budget estimate and a revised estimate? Now, it's very easy but slightly confusing because you people get confused with the dates. That's the reason it is slightly confusing. Now, let's go by very simple fact that very recently budget was announced on 1st of February 2023. Anybody has a problem with this? Please do let me know. On the 1st of February 2023, budget was announced. Now, before I go forward, can I say that 1st of February 2023 basically is a part of financial year 23? Any issues? If you have an issue, please do let me know, because it is just understanding calendar. Once you understand the calendar, what is revised, what is actual, etc., you will come to know very easily. So 1st of February 2023 is a part of financial year 23. Somebody says 2022. How, my dear? How? Then you don't know how the financial years are written. And you don't even know how financial year is written, which we have been discussing for multiple times now. 23-24, this is financial year 24. 22-23, this is financial year 23. Starts 1st of February. Great. Then you don't even know when the financial year start. Financial year will start on 1st of April. Right? This we have discussed in the first or second class. Financial year starts on the 1st of April. Right? Basically, again, right, please don't try to ask questions for the answer for which the answers you already know. Just for sake of raising a doubt, please don't raise a doubt. That will disturb somebody else. Right? Anyways, he is answering. Let me ask one more question. Let me trouble. Right? That there is no point in doing all of it. Now, have a look at this. 1st of February 2023, the budget is announced. And this February 2023 is already a part of financial year 23. Point number one. Now, second point, when the budget is announced on 1st of February 2023, is it okay if I say it is right applicable? That is, a budget is applicable for the duration starting from 1st April 23 to 31st March 2024. Everybody will agree? Although we are announcing a budget on 1st February, that is applicable for this duration. Now, I will call this as financial year 24. So, have a look at this. I am putting in a statement. I am in the financial year 23. I am announcing numbers for financial year 24. Now, in the same way, can I say that financial year 2022, it is over? Complete. Financial year 2022, it is over. It is complete now. Now, simple question to you. Think of it and answer. Can you change anything in the financial year 22? Can you change how much income tax was collected by the government? Right? I hope you understand. Can you change how much corporate tax rate was collected by the government? You are in the financial year 23. Can you change anything in the financial year 22? Answer is no. The calendar year, the financial year is already over. You cannot do anything. So have a look at this. Whatever is the data that I'm going to present for the previous financial year. I hope you understand. I am in the financial year 23. What is the previous financial year? Previous or preceding? Either one of them. Previous or preceding financial year. Whatever is the data for previous financial year or preceding financial year, that data is referred to as actuals. Any doubt with actuals? I hope you understand. Whatever is the preceding financial year, I am in financial year 23. What is the preceding financial year? Previous financial year 22. The data for it is called as actuals. Because the financial year is over, you cannot change anything. For next financial year, what is the next financial year for me now? Next financial year is financial year 24. Do you know how much will be the exact expenditure in financial year 24? Just think of it. Do you know how much will be the exact expenditure? Do you know how much will be the exact income tax collection? Absolutely no. You will call this as budget estimates. You'll refer to this as budget estimates. Now, is the actual and budget estimate clear to all of you? Because next one is slightly confusing. That's the reason. Let me finish these two. Go to the next one. Actual means what? Previous financial year. Over. You can't change anything. Actuals. Budget estimates for the next financial year. Right? For example, let me throw another number at you. Imagine you are the finance minister. Right? Just think of this. Imagine you are the finance minister. Right? 7:30. Right? You are the finance minister. You are presenting the budget on 1st February 2029. You are presenting the budget on 1st February 2029. Can I call this as financial year 29? Point number one. Can I call this as financial year 29? Right? Agreed? So preceding financial year will be financial year 28. So the data for financial year 28 will be actuals for you. And the next financial year for which you are announcing the budget, that is the financial year 30, it will be budget estimate for you. Any difficulty in understanding this? Right? Basically calendar application. Once you understand the application of calendar, it's very easy for you. So next financial year, you will announce estimates. For the previous financial year, you will announce actuals. But come to the important current financial year. All of you will agree, you are in the financial year 2023. Let me know. Right? Already we have established it. You are in the financial year 2023. Now, have a look at this. For current financial year, you will see budget estimate also. You will see revised estimates also. How is that possible? What is this budget estimate? What is this revised estimate? Now, for the current financial year, that is for financial year 23, don't you think Government of India would have announced a budget on 1st February 2022? Let me know. Right? For the current financial year, mind you, the Government of India would have announced budget on 1st February 2022. Now that is called as a budget estimate. But have you completed financial year 23 as of now? Is it okay? Have you completed the current financial year? No, you will complete the current financial year when you cross 31st March 2023. So imagine when the budget was announced for current financial year on 1st February 2022, government stated that we would be collecting income tax worth 1 lakh crore rupees. Now, don't you think that data would have changed by now already? I hope you understand. That data would have changed by now. you could have collected 1.2 lakh crore rupees, or based on the current situation, you could end up collecting 90,000 crores as well. So what you will do, based on the situation, you will revise the estimates for the current financial year. Is it okay? Based on the situation, you will revise the estimates for the current financial year. And this is a revised estimate. It's not actuals. Right? I hope you understand this. It's a revised estimate, because even today, I've not yet completed the financial year. I cannot write the actuals of the current financial year. I have simply revised it. I will only write the actuals when I complete the financial year. I'll tell you when you will come across actuals. Next year, right? I hope you understand. Next year, when the budget will be announced, let me write it, right? Now you understand this. Next year, when the budget will be announced, let's say 1st February 2024. All of you will agree? 1st February 2024. Now this 1st February 2024 will be what? Financial year 24. Now, for the financial year 24, in the next year budget, government will give you budget estimates. What is the budget estimate here? Can you see the budget estimate for financial year 24? Is it okay? Can you see the budget estimate for financial year 24? This will be written. Now, first, budget estimate for financial year 24, I'll write it. Financial year 24 will be written. Then, revised estimate for financial year 24 will be written. What is the next financial year? Financial year 25, budget estimates will be written. And finally, the actuals of financial year 23 will be written. So remember this. Next year, when you look at the budget documents, you will see the table like this. You'll simply see the table like this. So you are still in the financial year 24. Next year, that is succeeding year, budget estimates are given. The preceding year, right, the preceding financial year, because it is already over, actuals are given. Now, is the logic okay? What is actual? What is revised? What is budget estimates, etc. And every year it is given. Every year it will be given like this only. Done? So this is the discussion regarding the budget as well as the concept of finance commission. Now look at the question. Start. Okay. Just a second. Just a second. What is the option that I have given? Option B. My mistake. I'll solve it. I'll solve it. My mistake. The Department of Revenue is responsible. Some of you are saying, sir, you have made a mistake. My mistake. I'll agree to my mistake. The option that I've given is wrong. I'll correct it now. So have a look at this. Department of Revenue is responsible for the preparation of union budget that is presented to the parliament. No, statement 1 is wrong. Why? It is not Department of Revenue. It is a Department of Economic Affairs, DEA. Second, no amount can be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India without the authorization of Parliament of India. So 2 is correct, by the way. All the disbursements made from the public account also need the authorization from the Parliament. No, right, from the public account, there is no requirement of authorization. Government can simply deposit money, can withdraw money. So 1 is wrong, 3 is wrong, right? So the right option for the question will be option C. So those who have ticked option C, you are right. By mistake, I am only saying my mistake, right? I gave B as a right option. Okay, so right option is option C here. Next one. Okay, A is correct. 60% have answered correctly. Why it should have been much higher? Let's solve. Don't worry. If you have a doubt regarding any of the questions, please do raise it in the comment section so that I can address it. There has been a persistent deficit budget year after year. Which of the following actions can be taken by the government to reduce the deficit? Reducing revenue expenditure. Don't you think if the revenue expenditure comes down, the deficit in the budget will come down, right? Yes, can be taken. This can be one of the measures. Introduce new welfare schemes. Don't you think this is exactly opposite to point number 1? Just think of it. Right? Don't you think this is exactly opposite to point number 1? So 2 is wrong. So wherever 2 is there, right, eliminate the option. Third point, rationalization of subsidies. What do you mean by rationalization here? There are subsidy schemes, or there are various schemes which are implemented by the government under which subsidies are provided. But there is no need to provide the subsidies to everyone. You need to identify who is the right beneficiary, start targeting the beneficiary. Right? What do you mean by rationalization here? Rather than having a universal coverage under the subsidies, what if you start providing the subsidies only to the required people? Rationalization means better implementation, simple, efficient implementation. If you remember earlier, I told you this one example, LPG subsidy. Do you think everyone in India should be getting access to LPG subsidies? Obviously, the answer is no. There are certain houses which do not require any kind of a subsidy. For example, Antilla. Right, Antilla, by the way, right, if you don't know, it is basically the building which is owned by Mr. Mukesh Ambani. Right? Does anybody here think that any kind of subsidy is required for that building? Again, don't say, sir, you are targeting, etc., etc. Just a simple example so that you quickly understand it. So argument is, there are certain people who require subsidies, assistance, and there is population which doesn't require it. So why don't you target it properly? That is called as a concept of rationalization. And has Government of India rationalized the subsidies? Of course, yes. When I take up subsidy, maybe in the next week, we'll take up a chapter by the name of subsidy. I will have a discussion about the concept of direct benefit transfer. You will understand it. Please do not worry. So rationalization of subsidies will reduce the revenue expenditure, reduce the deficit. Right option for the question is option A here. Okay. Next, consider the following statements. I'll solve this. Follow this. I'll solve this. I'll discuss a concept here, right? Because I have not discussed this earlier. I'll discuss it. Follow this very carefully. There is something called as a vote on account, and there is one more called as an interim budget. Right? What is this idea for vote on account and interim budget? Now imagine there is a government and there are elections which are supposed to be held in the next couple of months. Is it okay? And if you know that the Lok Sabha elections are generally there in the month of April, May, like this. So have a look at this. You are in a year, let's say 1st of February, and after a couple of months, there are elections which are supposed to be held. Now, there are two options available to this government, and this is an outgoing government. I hope you understand what is the meaning of outgoing. Outgoing simply means in the next couple of months, there is an election to be held. So have a look at this. There are two options available to them. One, announce a full-fledged budget. As usual, announce a full budget, right, wherein they will provide details of total expenditure and also provide the details of the income, that is the revenue side of the budget. But is it okay if I say this is an election year, this is not a normal budget? I hope you understand. By the way, next year you will come across this. This is an election year, right? You do not know which party is going to form the government after the elections are over. So this is not unlike any normal budget. So this kind of a budget where a going government or an outgoing government which will provide the complete details, even though elections are there, they will provide the complete details of expenditure as well as income. This is called as interim budget. This is referred to as interim budget. Complete details are provided, just like a normal budget. And there is one more option for the government here. They know that elections will be held, and after 2 months, there could be a new government formed. So what they will do is, they will not announce the full budget like this. They will simply announce a part of the expenditures. Is it okay? They will simply announce a part of the expenditure. For example, right, have a look at this. Imagine elections are supposed to be held in the month of April, and May you will have a new government. For the month of April, can you tell the government employees, because elections are there, right, we will not pay you salaries? Just think of it. Possible, right? Or is it, right, a practice that should be followed? Right? You can't do that, right? Interest payment is there. Can you simply say elections are there, we will not pay interest? So the argument is simple here. There is a certain requirement of expenditure till the new government is formed. So for that duration, let's say for 2 months, the expenditures will be allowed to be withdrawn. That's it, only expenditure. This is referred to as vote on account. Vote on account. Any difficulty here? Interim budget is full budget, but only difference is elections are there. Vote on account means not full budget, only expenditure for taking care of certain months of expenditure, right? The vote on account is passed. Now, have a look at the statement here. Have a look at the statement. Vote on account deals only with the expenditure side of the government's budget. Is the first statement correct? Yes. Right? Any difficulty? Please do let me know. Right? First statement is correct. Second statement, interim budget does not give complete financial statement like a full budget. Right? In fact, interim budget will give you full details. Second statement is wrong. So right option for the question will be what? Option A, only one. Is it okay? Any difficulty in this question? Let me know. Right? Is it okay? Right? So interim budget, full details. Vote on account, only expenditure side. Now, have a look at a descriptive question. Right? Before that, there was one question. Sir, what was the reason behind choosing first working day of February to announce budget? Simple. Earlier practice, again practice. Constitution of India does not deal with this. Practice. Earlier convention or the practice was that the last working day of February will be the day when the budget is announced. Understand the logic now. Earlier the convention was that last working day, let's say 28th of February. Now again, don't do permutation combination and say, sir, what if it is a leap year? You are wrong. What if 28th is holiday? You are wrong. Assume last working day was 28th. Now, on 28th of February, the budget was earlier announced. In fact, earlier budget was announced night also. Budget was announced for some years in the evening also. Now, what we have done? From 28th of February, we have preponed to 1st of February, and we present the budget morning 11 a.m. And please understand, none of these are there in the Constitution. None of these provisions are there in the Constitution. It is just a convention. Tomorrow government might simply say, I will prepone it to 1st of January. They are allowed to do that. Right? They are allowed to do that because there is no constitutional provision for this. So understand the logic here. Why this was changed from 28th of February to 1st of February? Why? What was the reason? Let me explain. On the last working day of February, the budget was presented. Now there is a process for passage of the budget. I hope you remember. There is a process for it. There is a general discussion in Lok Sabha. Then there is a standing committee which are formed. Then there is a detailed discussion. Then they will have to send it to Rajya Sabha. Again in Rajya Sabha discussions will take place. They will send it to President of India. Then the President of India will sign. Now Government of India is allowed to withdraw the money from Consolidated Fund of India. Now this is a concern. What if by the time all the process is over, you have already entered in the month of April? Have a look at this. By the time the whole process is over, you have entered into the month of April, which means for 1st of April, that is the period starting from the 1st of April, you want to withdraw the fund. By the time you get the permission to withdraw the fund, you have already entered into April. Don't you think that will basically disrupt certain types of expenditures of the government? Right? And moreover, right, look at the another very important point. Government of India has proposed, let's say, certain irrigation projects, right? And I hope you know this. The monsoon season in India will generally start from June, right? Indian Meteorological Department says that from the first week of June, you will start receiving monsoon rainfall. It will go until, right, November, December. Then there is a retreat of monsoon, right? In November, December, there is a rainfall in the region of Tamil Nadu because of retreating monsoon. Now, don't have a heart attack. Sir, you are throwing so many bigger words. Monsoon, retreating monsoon, etc., etc. Please do not worry, right? If you have not learned about monsoon as of now, you will learn it under geography, right? What is monsoon? What is retreating monsoon, etc., etc. Everything will come to know in geography. Please don't have a heart attack. So imagine Government of India has proposed certain irrigation projects or infrastructure projects under agriculture sector. Now that has to be developed before monsoon only, right? Let's say rainwater harvesting project. Don't you think before the rainfall starts, the project should be ready? Now the problem is, in the month of April or let's say mid-April, you get the permission of the Parliament and the President of India to withdraw funds. Now how much time is there? How much time is there for you to allocate the funds, ensure that the project is over? So April, May and June. Before even the funds will reach the lowest level, monsoon has already arrived. So Government of India realized, okay, there's a problem. There's a problem with how we are basically, right, preparing the budget, passing the budget. So government said, let me prepone it. Let me simply prepone it to 1st of February now. Right? So this is the reason why budget process of implementation or passage has been preponed now. Done? I hope I've addressed the question. Now, have a look at the question here. The public expenditure management is a challenge to the Government of India in the context of budget making during post-liberalization period. Clarified. Many of you looking at the question itself, right, will feel, okay, I will not be able to solve these kind of questions. These questions are very difficult, etc., etc., etc. Please do not have that feeling. You feel these questions are difficult because you might have not read part of the question, or you might have not covered the syllabus which is covered under the question. For example, many of you will be struck by lightning when you come across the term post-liberalization. Right? You'll simply come to a conclusion, budget chapter is over. Now he's throwing a word, post-liberalization. I don't know what you mean by that. Right? And this question was asked in UPSC mains, by the way. Simple. I've not covered liberalization as of now. Don't worry, I'll cover it. Post-liberalization basically refers to LPG reforms. Now don't worry about LPG also. And the LPG that I'm referring to is not your cylinder. I hope you understand. I'm not referring to liquefied petroleum gas. Absolutely no. Right, almost 8 o'clock, all of you are hungry. You will be thinking about electricity, gas, right, biryani, etc., etc. I'm talking about liberalization, privatization and globalization. Right, industrial policy, very, very important industrial policy, but I'll not discuss it today. Don't worry. We'll discuss it maybe in the next week under industrial policies. But what is the importance of this? The question says, post the implementation of 1991 reforms, right? Post the implementation of 1991 reforms, right? So have a look at this. The budgetary process, right, or allocation of expenditure has become a challenge for the government of India. How? You'll have to elaborate it. These are some of the factors. So have a look at this. Post 1991, that is LPG reforms, the public expenditure management, PEM, public expenditure management. Some of you are worried about Shivratri. Sir, how can you say biryani when there is Shivratri? My dear, why do you assume I spoke about other type of biryani? Why don't you assume veg biryani or palav? Right? Don't worry. Right? Don't try to find out a loophole everywhere. Sir, this, sir, that, etc. Don't worry. Now, what is PM here? Right? A public expenditure management. Challenges that the government is facing, right? Post liberalization under the public expenditure management. One, fiscal deficit. Right? It's a challenge. It's a challenge, right? What is fiscal deficit? Borrowings. Right? Don't you think borrowings of the government of India, to contain it, to control it, is a challenge? I'll tell you the reason here, right? Have a look at this. There is a concept called as a challenges of globalization, right? Global shocks. I'll connect it to current affairs. Follow this very carefully. Why fiscal deficit is a challenge for government of India? How can you connect it with globalization? Globalization simply means the relation between the countries in terms of trade, in terms of movement of labor, in terms of movement of capital, the relations are improving. Is it okay? What do you mean by globalization? The borders between the countries are becoming porous. Porous in sense, capital movement, money can flow easily. People can move very, very easily. Companies can move very easily. Goods and services can move very easily. That is basically the idea for globalization. Now, the argument here is, with globalization, there is a concern. What is a concern? If something happens in USA, whether you like it or not, India will be affected by it. If something happens between Russia and Ukraine, whether you like it or not, you will be affected by it. Right, sir? Any example of it? Take fertilizer sector. Simple. Again and again, I'm giving you current affairs example. Please quote them in the exams. Please quote them. You will get very, very good quality answer because of this. Take the current affairs, Russia and Ukraine war. That is an event which is beyond the control of government of India. But because of that, the cost of a fertilizer subsidy for the government of India has escalated, has gone beyond control. In the budget for the current year, right? Have a look at this. The budget for the current financial year, government had kept aside 1.05 lakh crore rupees for fertilizer subsidies. What is a fertilizer subsidy? Don't worry, we'll discuss it next week. But because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, natural gas prices went up. And gas is a very important component in manufacturing of fertilizer. Various nitrogenous fertilizers prices went up. Now, next point is simple here. We are dependent on import of fertilizer. We produce fertilizers in India. No doubt we produce. But we import a lot of fertilizers as well. Now, you tell me, if the cost of raw materials will go up, cost of natural gas will go up, what will happen to cost of fertilizer? The cost of fertilizer will also go up. Now, here comes the next problem. If you simply supply the fertilizer at higher market prices to farmers, do you think all the farmers will be able to afford fertilizer in the first place? Just think of it, right? Because already I've told you, around 86% of farmers in case of India are small and marginal. So do you think all the farmers will be able to afford it? Answer is no. And even those who afford it, what will happen to cost of inputs for them? The cost of inputs will go up. Now you tell me, if the cost of input in agriculture sector goes up, what will happen to market prices of agriculture commodities? The market prices of agriculture commodities automatically will start going up. Don't you think that will contribute to inflation? Now here is the dilemma for government. If I allow the sale of fertilizers at whatever prices are reflective of international market, that will cause a lot of hardship in the market. Farmers will suffer. The prices in the market will go up. Inflation will be caused. Right? That's a problem. So what do? I will provide subsidies on fertilizers. I'll simply provide subsidies on fertilizers and ensure that fertilizers are sold to the farmers at the same price. Prices will not increase by much. In fact, right, I hope you understand this. In fact, in some of the fertilizers, right, more than 900 rupees, more than 2000 rupees amount of subsidy is given by the government for every bag of fertilizer. Per bag of fertilizer, I hope you understand. So when government will give fertilizer subsidy, what will happen to revenue expenditure? Revenue expenditure will go up. If the revenue expenditure goes up, what will happen to fiscal deficit? It will go up. Right? And that is the precise reason fertilizer subsidy. Last point, we'll take up the question tomorrow and we'll continue. That is the precise reason fertilizer subsidy for the current financial year, government estimated 1.05 lakh crore rupees. And as per the revised estimates, it will be much higher than 2 lakh crore rupees. I hope you understand. It will be much higher than 2 lakh crore rupees. It's a huge amount of jump. Don't you think the globalization will be a challenge to maintain fiscal deficit for the government of India? Answer is yes. Any difficulty so far? Any difficulty? Can we stop the discussion here? I'll take up the question tomorrow again. Please do not worry. We'll continue the discussion from this question. Again, not literally immediately in the beginning. We'll start with a new chapter, then we'll come back to the question and solve it. Okay, any difficulty in any of the areas that we have covered so far in today's class, please do let me know. Right? Otherwise, I'll close the discussion for the day. Any difficulty so far? Important point regarding prelims, right? What are you referring to? Right? What points are you referring to? In which area are you referring to? All the things that we have discussed, all of them are relevant. All of them are important. Okay. Any doubts? If there is no doubt, another 2 minutes are there. I'll continue discussion then. Now everybody will have doubts. If you say no doubts, 2 more minutes are there, I'll continue the discussion. Can you skip NCERT? Please don't do that. If you're from economics background, yes, you can, right, basically skip NCERT, but then whatever reference book you are reading, please read it very carefully. But if you say, sir, I do not have any connection to economics whatsoever, this is the first time, and right, I'm afraid of it, then my recommendation, read NCERTs. NCERTs are wonderful source for preparation of Indian economy. Okay. Nitin Singhania is sufficient. Again, if you want to read static source or static information, one book is more than sufficient. Any one book. Sir, I have this book, I have that book. I believe the Byju's has provided Nitin Singhania. Read that. But again, within that book also, don't read it from first page to last page. Not relevant, not necessary. Right? Why? The reason is very simple. Right? A lot of times, the information is provided just for sake of providing information. Whether it is relevant for UPSC or not, that is very important for. Right? Try to identify certain areas within Nitin Singhania which is never going to be asked by UPSC. Simply skip it. Simply skip it. Budget is in Article 12 or 14. Budget is not mentioned in the Constitution of India. Rather, there is 112, 112, right? 112, right? Article 112, which talks about annual financial statement. Sir, which class NCERT? 9th class, 10th class, 11th class, and 12th class. 9, 10, 11, and 12. And in the 12th class, there are 2 books. Please don't worry about microeconomics. Focus on macroeconomics. What syllabus is different between GS and optional paper? As good as talking about, let's say, the outer layer of onion and the right central part of onion. If you think of economics, GS paper that you are reading, whatever we are discussing now, it is GS paper 3. Imagine an onion, right, or onion, right, whatever you want to call it as. Right? Imagine an onion. GS paper 3 is basically the outer two layers. And if you say optional, forget about outer two layers. You'll have to get into the inner layers of onion. Because if you look at the optional paper 1, if you are not taking economics as an optional, please don't look at it. If you want to take economics as an optional, I would say be very, very much careful about paper 1. Paper 1 is very, very technical, very difficult. Difficult in the sense if you're not from the economics background. Right? Because I know many of you would have heard to the speeches of XYZ and will come to a conclusion, I want to do economics. Because the topper said economics is very easy. The topper says economics is easy because he's from World Bank. The topper says economics is easy because he's from Sri Ram College of Commerce in Delhi. Right? Or London, he's basically from London School of Economics. Please don't be fooled by that. If you do not have economics as a background, my suggestion to you would be stay away from economics optionals. Because you can handle optional paper 2. Optional paper 1 is difficult for you. Okay, done then. So let me stop the discussion here. Sir, explain crowding out effect once more. My dear, there is no question of once more. I have not even discussed it. Tomorrow we'll discuss the crowding out effect. Okay, done then. So let me stop the discussion today here. Right, so we'll continue tomorrow 10 a.m. Tomorrow 10 a.m. we'll start financial market. I'll come back to the questions. Don't worry, somewhere in the middle we'll have a discussion on the questions as well. So that's it from my side. Take care. See you tomorrow.